This meeting to order. At this time, we'll just have a moment of reflection to take on the business. Thank you. Now, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general thereof, knowing that you can declare later on through the meeting? We'll learn all about that in today's training session. Public participation. Members of the public are encouraged to provide the committee with their comments and questions. Presentations must be prearranged with legislative services before the agenda is released. Members of the public who wish to make a deputation about a specific agenda item at the meeting must register in advance with legislative services by 4 p.m. on July 2, 2024 by contacting Deputy Clerk at meaford.ca or 519-538-1060, extension 1110. Presentations are limited to 10 minutes and deputations are limited to 5 minutes. Today we have no presentations and or deputations on agenda items for today. So basically I'd like to start with welcome. Thanks for giving your time. I hope this is a very fruitful committee. And we'll start with introductions. I'm Steve Bartley. This is my third term on council, just a baby compared to Harley. And it's an honor to chair this committee. We'll start over here with yourself. Just you hit your mic and tell us a bit about yourself.
That's good. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is George Cooper. I reside here in Meaford. I've been living here for 4 years now. I am a civil engineer who works for CF Crozier and Associates out of Collingwood. So I've worked on a number of projects kind of in the Grey County area, including in Meaford. So I'm familiar with the existing infrastructure in the municipality, and I'm excited to be a part of this advisory committee and help to provide as much value as I possibly can.
Thank you. I like this. Sorry, like I said, it's my first time.
Hi, I'm Kevin Marlowe. I've been in Meaford about 7 years now. Enjoy the town. My background with the infrastructure would be with Bell Canada, which I spent over 22 years with. As far as construction wise, building roads, infrastructure, that sort of thing. My biggest build was up in the oil patch. 2007, I was up there. We constructed a huge telecommunication infrastructure system made of both microwave towers and fiber optics. So I've built networks, infrastructure networks from coast to coast with Bell, Rogers, TELUS. Then when Bell retired me at the age of 45, I started my own business as a builder. So I am certified to design and build residential homes. So I find these assets that I do have, Steve, will be much beneficial to this committee.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay, there we are. Harley Greenfield, councillor with the municipality of Meaford. Been around for a while. Never built a road, never built a bridge, never built a wastewater treatment plant or a water treatment plant. But I'm certainly very, very interested in everything that we get involved with in our municipality, and looking forward to a lot more new, very innovative ideas and comments coming from the members of this committee. We've got a great bunch together, and I'm sure Councillor Bartley will do his very best to keep us under control. He might be young, but he's learned very fast.
Hi everyone, Chris Rayom. I've only been in Meaford now for about 2.5 years, residing in Bognor. I come from an academic scientific background, originally PhD neurobiology genetics. I've been in the biotech industry for now about 13 years. Now at an executive level, having established a few affiliates of different biotech companies in Canada. My background in infrastructure comes much more by the way of family background. Come from a 4th-generation home builder, family of home builders in Southern Ontario, Tecumseh, Windsor. My father was deep into municipal politics and infrastructure building, home land development and home building. So my experience there is going to be new with you guys and only kind of what I've had peripherally from a family experience. So looking forward to supporting in any way I can, and hopefully we can advance this agenda for the community together.
Thank you. How about staff? Could you let us know who you are?
For sure. Jessica Wiley, I'm the Director of Operations for the municipality. My portfolio includes roads, fleet, wastewater, waste, period, water, period, wastewater, yes. And parks operations as well, which includes all the things, cemeteries, etc. So I am here as your staff liaison.
Hi, everyone, and I just want to compliment you all. You all picked up on the microphones very quickly, so great job. My name's Alex, and I'm the acting clerk for the municipality. So I'm here as sort of the legislative services support, and you've already received a bunch of emails from me. So yes, nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Alex. And having said that, I'll turn this over to you and you can lead us through some of the education, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we could get the committee orientation presentation up. Other than the counselors here, have you folks ever been on a committee before, a municipal advisory committee at all? First time? Okay. So I'm the one that gets to present the very exciting, lighthearted legislation piece. We do this orientation for all of our new committees. So that's kind of what I'll be going over today. I do recognize that you've all received this, and I'm assuming you've probably taken a look at it as well. So I'm not going to go too far into detail. I'll try and keep it brief so I'm not boring everybody, but it is important stuff. Oh, perfect. Okay. So just some of the things we'll be touching on today. We'll be touching on some bylaws that are relevant to the advisory committees and some legislation as well. And then we'll go into our code of conduct presentation. So first and foremost is the establishing bylaw for this committee. You would see that on the agenda that was distributed last week. We are not going to go over this bylaw word for word in detail. It's just important for you to know about it because this bylaw was passed by council and it does govern the advisory committee. So you're going to see the mandate, responsibilities, some notes about meetings, administration, roles, reporting. So it's basically the bread and butter, so to speak, for this committee in terms of what you will be seeing, what the mandate is, just the overall governance. The procedural bylaw, so the Municipal Act says that every municipality has to have their own procedural bylaw. So we added it again to the agenda more as a resource. The procedural bylaw basically governs everything that we do in terms of how we hold our meetings from a procedural standpoint. Motions, so we won't go too far into detail about motions because it's a lot. I find that there's a little bit of a flow when it comes to motions. So I would say you folks being new to the committee, if you haven't watched a council meeting, I would recommend that you do, or at least watch a piece of it. And I say that just because you learn a little bit of the dynamic, the back and forth, as referenced on the slide through you, Mr. Chair, the way that we speak sort of amongst each other. We don't have to be super formal in committee meetings. But there are certain nuances in terms of how we communicate with each other. And it's easier for you to watch that versus me sort of explaining it is kind of what I'm getting at. And a motion is essentially, it represents the start of a decision. So you will see in the future, we might put a staff report on the agenda, and there might be a recommendation from staff to the committee. So with that being said, the committee would then move and second a motion. And a motion represents a decision from the committee. So that decision will then go on to council for final decision. When I say decision from the committee, the advisory committees do not have the authority to make sort of governing decisions, but you are here to decide on things to then go to council, if that makes sense. So there's a little bit of that sort of dynamic. If staff makes a recommendation to this committee, it could look like, staff recommends that the infrastructure committee recommends to council that. It's more so like a recommendation versus a decision, but that sort of starts with a motion. And again, if what I'm saying isn't really making sense, that's okay. It's a little bit clearer when you sort of watch it in action. And because we're a brand new committee, we obviously don't have any motions today. But this slide does point to, if a member of the committee has a motion, you can also bring that forward. A lot of the times our role in legislative services is we help with motions. So if there was something you wanted to bring to, let's say, the next meeting, you could email me and we could work on it together. Again, it's just a formality piece that we have. And if this isn't making sense, that's totally fine. It is a lot of information, but it's almost like some of this stuff might make sense more down the line as we've been through a few meetings. Voting. So voting is sort of how we close the end of a motion. So there's a little bit of a flow, like I said. We'll have a mover and a seconder to bring forward a motion, bring it on the table for discussion. There'll be some discussion, and then it usually ends with a vote. So each member gets one vote. And unless there's been an interest declared and that member has excused themselves, if there is a tie vote, the motion is defeated. Votes are completed by a show of hands. So if the chair asks the committee for a vote, you just have to raise your hand. Agenda review meeting. So this is something new to our newly established advisory committees. So we are running the committees in a sort of 3-week cycle. So 2 weeks ago on Wednesday morning, we met with Councillor Bartley, myself, Jessica, and Councillor Bartley had a meeting to discuss today's agenda. So council implemented this process because we wanted the committee to be a little bit more involved in the agenda process, as opposed to staff just publishing an agenda. We also wanted there to be an opportunity for a member of the committee to be involved. So agenda review meetings, the chair, so Councillor Bartley, is able to bring a committee member to that meeting. And if you'd like to be a little bit more a part of the agenda publishing process, you can attend and be a part of that discussion. So that would have happened 2 weeks ago. And then last Wednesday is when the agenda went out for this meeting. So that's what I mean by 3-week cycle. Do I have any questions so far? Am I making sense? Okay. And then the agenda itself. So our agenda, again, the way that it's set up comes from our procedural bylaw. So the headings that are on it, we're following a structure that's laid out for us. It adds that level of predictability. You can expect to see similar headings on every single agenda, and it just sort of guides our meeting, essentially. Preparing for a meeting. So like I said, the agenda review meeting was 2 weeks ago. So the chair, a member of the committee, our staff resource, and myself attend the meeting. And the idea is to have a rotating member of the committee so that everyone can take part in that. Then, like I said, the agenda is published 1 week before the meeting so that you have all the content available to you prior. And then the meeting day. So obviously, if you can't attend a meeting, just let me know. Draft minutes are essentially the record of the meeting. I try to get those done a few days following so that the draft minutes are available for you to review as well, if there is anything that you want to go back and look at. And further to that, all of our meetings are live streamed. So right now we are on YouTube. Members of the public can watch. members of the public can also participate, just like Councillor Bartley had read the public participation section of the agenda. So if you have someone that has an idea and they want to speak to you, invite them, let me know. And then this slide also talks about quorum. So quorum, again, this term comes from our procedural bylaw. We need half the committee members plus one in order for a meeting to proceed. That is what we consider quorum. If, you know, only 2 people can come to a meeting, we have to cancel it because that's not considered quorum. And then another one, and it kind of leaks into our code of conduct-ish, but a quorum of committee members are not to discuss business outside of the formal meeting setting. So, you know, all of you couldn't go and have coffee and, you know, have a meeting sort of outside of this setting. So sitting at the Horseshoe, microphones, like I said, you all nailed the microphones, so no notes there. Presentations, like I said, if there's anybody that you know that would like to make a presentation to the committee, just have them register with me in advance and I'll kind of take it from there. Participation, I've already kind of touched on that. I will just make a side note that, I mean, you all listed off your experience. Council and staff highly value our advisory committees because the experience that you have is important to the decisions and the consideration that council makes. So an advisory committee setting is a great option for public participation. You are all members of the public and we're really happy to hear from you in this setting. Just some, like I said, super fun legislation. So the Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, MFIPA. I think we've just included a slide in here just for your awareness in terms of protecting personal information. Obviously, we are obligated, we are under certain restrictions under this act when we get certain requests from the public, things of that nature. I don't know how relevant this would be to this particular committee, but I think slideshows like this and, you know, trainings are great resources if you ever were to have a question or wanted to know where to look for something. Same thing goes for the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. So the goal of the act is to protect the public interest, provide transparency and accountability in the decision-making process. So this ties back into our code of conduct, just making sure that the public is a part of the decision-making process. Our advisory committee meetings are a part of that process because you are ultimately making recommendations to council about potentially their decisions. And then earlier, what Councillor Bartley had talked about in terms of pecuniary interest, we can't advise somebody on declaring an interest. That would be something that would be up to your own personal discretion. But examples of that would be if there was a decision on the table that related to you in particular. So if we're talking about, let's say, I mean, this probably wouldn't happen, but let's say we're talking about your property or your neighbor's property and you feel that you can't be impartial to that decision and you might want to excuse yourself. Pecuniary interest, so if it relates to a family member, there's a whole bunch of sort of, it's all laid out in this particular act. And like I said, it would be up to your own discretion to excuse yourself from the conversation if you felt it was most appropriate. All you can do is use your best judgment in that situation. Just other notes about, I guess, etiquette is not replying all to emails. So you'll see when I send an email out to the committee, I usually quiet copy so that, you know, we're not having email discussions, things like that. It's usually, you know, here's the agenda. And then obviously discussion should be had at our meetings. Just after the agenda is published, no changes or additions can be made. Correspondence received. So let's say there's an email that you might think is relevant to this committee. You can forward it to me and I can include it on the agenda. Oh, and I guess that's it. Yes, that's it. Is there any questions about that presentation in particular? Like I said, very fascinating stuff. I'm sorry. but we'll move over to the second PowerPoint, so the code of conduct. I will make a note as well that I'm going to have some handouts for you all in terms of, we do have our committee members sign our code of conduct. I'll have that ready for the next meeting. Let's see. So what we'll cover in this one: municipal act requirements, advisory committee and volunteer code of conduct. This just outlines the municipal act. So we have a code of conduct more or less because the municipal act tells us we need to. It's also very important. We do reference the bylaw that our code of conduct sort of lives under, 2016-23. This kind of PowerPoint just outlines sort of the policy statement and the purpose of the code of conduct. So it helps to ensure a common basis of acceptable behavior. Obviously, there's going to be standards to behavior and how volunteers conduct themselves and sort of represent the municipality. There are statutory provisions regulating conduct. It just says the code does not replace or supersede any statutory provisions. There's sort of general principles and values, support the mission, vision, and values of the municipality, respect decision-making processes of council, be professional, have integrity, respect, and trust, promote open, accountable, and transparent local government, encourage public respect for the municipality, its bylaws and policies, dignity and respect, conduct respecting staff, just sort of some behavioral pieces that's in the code of conduct, and it is enforceable as well. Member conduct, advisory committee member conduct, fulfilling the mandate in terms of reference. So again, circling back to the terms of reference that essentially governs this committee, respecting our processes, respecting the community, all stuff that, you know, pretty self-explanatory. It also talks a little bit about complaints as well. There is a process in which if a complaint was to be made against a committee member or a member of council, because we do have a code of conduct for council as well. There is a process in which the integrity commissioner would investigate. So again, if there was a breach to the code of conduct, and then it just asks for questions. So I tried to zoom through that, but how are you guys feeling about all that information? Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's a lot to take in, but like I said, it might make more sense as we do more meetings. But that would be all from me.
Thank you, Alex. Everything will fall into place. I know you're all professionals, and it is going to be simple. I was going to give you a small history lesson if I could take a minute of your time. Back in the 90s, the province paid for a lot of the infrastructure for municipalities. And in order to balance their books, they started cutting that all out. Then they'll give you a drab of money here and a drab of money there. Well, that really didn't work out for them. They still haven't balanced the books. So the weight of the infrastructure is on the municipal backs. And you look back in the 90s, the 2000s, your property taxes were half of what they were, or a quarter of what they were. But now we have to pay for everything. We got a report, I think it was in 2014, 2015, infrastructure deficit. And at that time, Meaford, the municipality, had an $85 million deficit. I would hate to think what it is now. I don't think we have an updated figure, but I would imagine it'd be more than double that. The province at the time had a $5 billion annual deficit for infrastructure. So if the province ponied up $5 billion a year, we could cover all our infrastructure issues. They're not doing that. So we were basically told by every intelligent person in the province that you have to start taxing for infrastructure needs. We started in 2017. Harley was part of it. I was part of it. A small tax increase. Even if staff came to us and said, you're not having an increase this year, we're going to hit you with 2.5%. We put 1% towards roads, 1% to bridges, and 0.5 point to our buildings, right? And that compounds every year. We've done it since 2017. So Jessica has the exact figures, but it's over $1 million a year added to your tax base that we put towards bridges. We have 85 bridges to fix, and there isn't one of them under $1 million. We put over $1 million a year so far into roads and 500 and I think 88,000 towards our buildings in the tax base that you have now. This has put us about 15 points ahead of our competitors. You can look at the BMA report and see Southgate, Grey Highlands, West Grey, Chatsworth, their taxes are cheaper on. And what I compare to is a bungalow. 60% of our tax base is bungalows. So on the BMA report, that's the main thing they compare to. They are cheaper. But they have not added a penny to taxes, or very little, over the last 8 to 10 years. And they're huge issues. This year, most of them come to the table. Their increases were 10%. West Grey started out at 32% to cover what they needed done. They whittled it down. They cut just about everything they were going to do on infrastructure, and they settled it just under 10%. Meaford was just a little over 3% on the Meaford side, because we've already done that. We're spending more on infrastructure than any municipality in the county. Now, like Jessica will tell you, it's still not enough. It never will be enough. But what this municipality's done, I believe, is in the right direction. To the point where we were the second highest tax base in the county. Now we're third. We're edging towards 4 and 5, because the other ones have to catch up, because the infrastructure deficit, they're not fixing bridges, they're not doing roads. They have to. So just a little history lesson on what we've done. And we hope to move forward with the same terminology in order to have the infrastructure we need, the roads you can drive on, the bridges you can cross. So any questions on any of that, feel free to ask me. If I don't know the answer, I can get you the answer. Jessica, do you want to go over the pillars of investing in infrastructure, or do you want me to go over them, or? Okay.
Chime in with any details if that's helpful.
And this doesn't mean this is what we have to stick to in these meetings. This is what we would prefer to stick to. We can tangent off on this if it's necessary. So our 5 pillars, and I've actually printed them off, is water and wastewater master plan update, expansion of the wastewater treatment plant, which is going to be the biggest thing that's happened to this municipality for a long time, because the price is just astronomical. And in the spring at Roma, we were at we sat in front of the Minister of Infrastructure, begging her case we need help with the water treatment plant. We were number 27th on the list, asking for the same thing. Anyways, so water and wastewater rate study, telecommunications conduit framework. That'd be a good one for you. Long-term facility portfolio management. So what do we do with the buildings we have now? That's the 5 pillars. They are on the website, the Meaford website, under the council priorities. But we're open to talk about anything you wanted to. That's my spiel on where we want to go. Is there any input or questions? And I'm hoping from this group that there's a lot brought forward that we can delve into over the time. Yes, sir.
Steve, sorry, I have a question. These new builds that are coming to the municipality of Meaford, are they sold to the builders with a cost for infrastructure build?
I'm going to open that one up to Jessica. There is development charges. There is all kinds of costs, and Jessica, please correct me if I'm wrong. So when you apply to build a house, there's charges both for the county and for the municipality. And I believe it's around $10,000 for the municipality of Meaford to build a house. Is it 8 to?
So through the chair, the building cost is outside of my realm of knowledge.
Okay, okay.
That would be a great question for our building officials, but I can definitely find out the information. That's no problem. Do you mean infrastructure costs? Like if I'm building a brand new subdivision, as an example? Okay,
So what I'm asking, excuse me, you're building 350 homes. What's his cost? Is it going to be implemented on a large sum for that road infrastructure, not just to build it, but to maintain it for the next 30 years too?
so through you, as you can imagine, it varies depending on the circumstance, I guess is a good way to put it. The developer, and this seems to be a hot topic recently, like what the developer pays for versus what we pay for. And the cost of a new subdivision is bore entirely by the the builder or what's the word I'm thinking of here? Like
Contractor.
whatever. Yeah. Like it's entirely their costs and we assume everything in the end. For the most part, the assumption it always will include water, wastewater, roads, sidewalks, lights, like all the things. The initial installation costs and everything is up to them. And then once we're okay with them being installed and happy with what it looks like, then we assume them and maintain them in perpetuity. That cost is ours. But the initial install is up to the developer, I guess.
Yeah, and Barry implemented a charge a few years ago, $50,000 on top of per house for that to try to slow things down. It didn't slow it down a wee bit. We have a neighbor to the east of us that are talking about bringing $100,000 charge per building for the infrastructure. It hasn't passed yet, but that's what they're talking. So yes, when they're building that thing, the Meaford doesn't pay for any of the infrastructure inside.
A new single detached home in our urban area are approximately 18,000. In the country, they're approximately 10,000. Here again, that's reflective of the underground infrastructure.
Thank you, Harley. And I was saying 10 because I am a country bumpkin.
Through the chair, just for your knowledge too, our DC study is currently ongoing. So that will be something that we'll see in the next, I don't want to put a time limit on it, but in the next little while will be something that everyone will be privy to. We'll be evaluating the rates associated with DCs.
George, you were interested in a question?
Yeah, and through you, Mr. Chair, I was also just going to chime in terms of the timing of payment of the DCs. And Jessica may correct me if I'm wrong, but typically I believe the developers would pay for the DCs related to roads, sanitary, water as part of development agreements, with the remainder of DCs being paid at the time of building permit. So the costs for infrastructure are usually upfront.
Yes. Any other questions moving forward today? I hope we bring a lot of questions the next time. This is just basically an orientation day. Yes, sir. Yes, Chris.
Yes, so we'll ask a question then, just in terms of moving forward and, orienting and further kind of context of orienting, how are we addressing the priorities you outlined in terms of our mandate? You mentioned the 5 pillars. how do we approach those from a priority perspective and in our role more specifically in the committee?
I'm going to say whatever is near and dear to your heart, you want to bring forward. I don't think we're doing it each pillar, just whatever you want to talk about. And it can stray from these pillars. But yes, Jessica, please.
Through the chair, I actually was going to ask a question, if I may, based on people's interest. I want to be a valuable staff resource to the committee. So I was curious of the pillars. Is there anything that people are most interested in that maybe I could provide information or maybe a bit of a presentation at the next get together of our committee? I'm happy to share any information that's available, but I just wasn't sure if there's anything specific that I could bring to the table for your knowledge and maybe discussion as one of the pillars to try to get us going.
It sounds DC charges may be something on there that does help with all of this investing. This, that's what we pay for things with. So that might be a good start.
If anyone's even remotely interested in the wastewater treatment plant, I know I am biased because I am very interested in it. It could be something that we include as part of the conversation, just as where we're at in the process, because it will, in the middle of July, there will be a 30-day mandatory public comment period for the completion of the environmental assessment. And that's coming to council on Monday, just to let everyone know. But that's where we're at in the process. Like, we're starting into design. So it's kind of an interesting part or place to be that maybe we're interested in just understanding how we got here and knowing what the next steps are. And inherently DCs are woven into the into the mix. So it might make sense to talk about them together.
Yes, George.
Thank you. I, for one, would certainly be very interested in that. And another component to that I would also like to just get some more information on is regarding the municipality's dealings with the inflow and infiltration in the existing sewers. I understand that's been a challenge in the municipality, and that there has been a number of projects to reduce I&I in the sewer system. So we'd just be curious as to what plans the municipality has going forward with reducing I&I.
I'm not even joking. We were literally just talking about that in this room before this conversation. So by all means, yes. It's actually a good segue into talking about the plant, because we are trying to reduce I&I, and it's going to be very noticeable in the community or with the public in the next year, I would say. So it is great to ask the question. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, George. And just with the I&I, and these are ballpark figures. If we put out 1 million liters of water to the households, we should treat maybe 900 coming back, because you're going to lose some somewhere. We're putting 1 million out and treating 2 million coming back. And that's where wastewater is at its brink almost, because of the influx of water into our system through roof drains, through broken pipes and everything. So that's why we're spending a ton of money trying to correct that. It's ancient infrastructure. And for reading, if you want to know more about the water treatment plant, on next Monday's agenda, and you can go into council on the website and pull up there's 600 pages on the water treatment plant.
You're welcome.
And you may not believe this, I'm not reading every 600 pages. It's pretty in depth. A lot of it repeats itself. I did get through a bunch of it, but this is major to this town. The price tag, I'm not even going to say it. I can't say that big of a figure. Is astronomical, and I have no idea how we'd ever pay for it. And for the people who live out in Bogner, you need to know your tax dollars do not go towards that, right? So the people that live in the town pay for water and wastewater. It is Ontario law. If you're not on the system, you don't help pay for it. Everybody over the last 10 years has jumped on me on how much they're spending on the water treatment plant in Meaford. Well, they're not. It's a user pay system. And that's important to know. But, yes, Harley.
Thanks, Steve. Just wanted to add, our current wastewater treatment plant was constructed in 1970. So it's been around for a while. Something the municipality did, and this is a number of years ago, is that we bought not a big tract of land, but some acreage adjacent to the plant, and with the idea of expansion. So we do have some extra room down there, and I think the new plant will take up some of that, or maybe all of that. But anyway, we have capacity as far as square footage to do this construction. We don't have to go out tomorrow and buy 2 or 3 more acres down next to Beach Trail subdivision. And if I may, Chair Steve, you made a lot of real good points in your opening address about infrastructure. An example that I use is that when it comes to bridges, our municipality has 79 bridges. I might be out 1 or 2. Georgian Bluffs has 3. So we've got a lot of work on the bridges, but these bridges serve a purpose. They serve farms, they serve businesses, they serve homes, and they have to be maintained and kept open.
Thank you, Harley. And you didn't add that in 1970, when the plant was built, you laid some of the blocks, did you not? That's the main reason. That's not where I was going with that, Harley. Not where I was going with that. Having said that, is there anything else somebody wants to bring forward? If not, there's just a communication thing I'll start with here. The committee will consider correspondence received by members of the public during each meeting. To share your comments, thoughts, or concerns with members of the committee, the public can send an email to deputyclerk@meaford.ca. Having said that, the date of the next meeting is September 4th, just after the Salmon Spectacular. If I could get a way to contact the committee, because for the next agenda meeting, I'll invite 1 person each agenda meeting to come in if you want to come in for the agenda setting meeting. And so before you leave, give me a way to contact us, please. So September 4th is our next meeting. Having said that, I adjourn this meeting. Thank you.